You remember the moment your name echoed through the classroom. Roll call, a silence that felt heavier than your backpack ever could. Your body answered before your mouth had the chance. Palms slick with sweat, cheeks burning, a desperate wish to somehow fold yourself small enough to fit inside your pencil case. The teacher's voice cut through the stillness. Who wants to read aloud? On the outside, you straightened your pencil. On the inside, you were pleading with the universe. Anyone but me. Years pass. The classroom becomes a conference room. The chalkboard transforms into a projector screen. Roll call evolves into let's go around and introduce ourselves. And your body, faithful to its earliest lessons, performs the same ancient ritual. Heart racing, throat tightening, that familiar urge to disappear. If this sounds like your story, I need you to hear something important. You are not dramatic. You are not making this up. What happens inside you has a simple name: shyness, as a learned pattern of fearing evaluation. It's a trio working in perfect sync, a body on high alert, thoughts drenched in shame, behaviors designed for escape. Somewhere along the way, when it felt like you were being measured, you learned to shrink so you wouldn't fail in front of everyone. And it worked. It kept you safe, but at what cost? Think of a shell. The first time you crawled inside, it was shelter. The second time, it became home. The third time, it started feeling like a narrow corridor. Here's what I want you to understand. That shell isn't a flaw. It's the way your body found to protect itself when the gaze of others felt too enormous to bear. Inside it, the noise of the world grew quieter. But over time, you might have noticed something painful: living only inside that shell keeps you from ever seeing the ocean. Protection became prison. And recognizing this doesn't diminish you. It explains you. Maybe no one ever named this for the child you once were. Maybe you heard, "Oh, he's just shy. Leave him alone." So often it became your identity. Maybe they laughed when you hid behind someone's leg at a family gathering. Maybe well-meaning adults answered for you with the best intentions and accidentally trained you to believe a devastating message. On your own, you're not enough. Today, grown on the outside, the memory lives in your body. It still pulls you downward. In any group, you feel like you're somehow less than. Speaking up feels like an invitation to ridicule. But I want you to know, this isn't a character flaw. It isn't a lack of faith. It's a survival lesson that simply outgrew its usefulness. Before we go any further, let me say this clearly. There's a profound difference between being reserved and being held hostage by the fear of being seen. Being reserved is a preference. You choose when to speak. You conserve your energy. You observe. Being held hostage is when fear makes every decision for you, and it always decides. No, you don't need to exile your quiet nature. What you need is to build boundaries so that fear no longer runs the show alone. And perhaps that's exactly why you're here, reading these words, not to become someone else, but to finally understand the architecture of what's been happening inside you all along. Because understanding is the first step toward freedom. Understanding is how we begin to teach our bodies that a spotlight doesn't have to feel like a fire. So take a breath. You've already taken the hardest step. You've shown up. And showing up, even with trembling hands and a racing heart, is its own quiet form of courage. Long before he was remembered as a leader, long before his name became synonymous with courage and deliverance, Moses was someone who trembled at the mere thought of speaking in public. His story, stripped of its grandeur, is disarmingly simple and, perhaps painfully familiar. He lived as a stranger in a foreign land, carrying the weight of an identity that never quite fit. Then came an encounter that changed everything, a calling that demanded he step into the light. But this mission required something that made his blood run cold: speaking, negotiating, being seen by powerful people who could crush him with a single glance. And what did Moses say when faced with this terrifying invitation? He said something that could have come straight from your own lips. I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. Translated into today's language, I'm going to freeze up. I don't know how to express myself. They're going to laugh at me. He tried to escape with reasons. He offered excuses, alternatives, anything to avoid the spotlight. And honestly, who among us hasn't done the same? But here's what I want you to notice, what I want you to hold close. There's no sermon here that magically erases his fear. There's no divine shortcut that transforms him overnight into a confident orator. What Moses receives instead is something far more human, far more tender. He receives support, Aaron, a brother who would stand beside him, someone to share the burden of speaking, to be a stepping stone toward exposure. Not a replacement forever, but companionship at the beginning. Moses goes, returns, tries again. He speaks, he stumbles, he speaks again. Process, practice, patience. If you're the person who whispers, "Speak for me," to a friend before every meeting, if you've ever nudged someone under the table to answer the question directed at you, Moses is your mirror. Explicit fear, concrete support, repeated practice. Now, let this scene settle into your chest. Feel its weight. When your body understands that speaking in public is a threat, it sounds every alarm it knows, heart racing like it's trying to escape your ribcage, throat constricting as if invisible hands are squeezing, thoughts scattering like startled birds. This is anticipation of shame. This is your nervous system trying desperately to protect you from a danger it learned to recognize long ago. And so the strategy is born. Avoid, pass your turn, become invisible, blend into the wallpaper. Let someone else carry the weight of being seen. What once protected you now imprisons you. With time, a devastating belief takes root. My voice doesn't matter. What I have to say isn't worth hearing. But I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't truth. This was learning. And what can be learned can also be unlearned, with intention, with practice, with care. Moses didn't become a speaker because his fear vanished. He became one because he took trembling steps forward anyway, with Aaron by his side, one word at a time. And perhaps that's the invitation waiting for you, to not to silence your fear, but to stop letting it speak for you. So how does this pattern take root in the first place? Let's open up its anatomy, without clinical jargon, without making you feel like a case study. Just truth, spoken plainly. Some children are born with a more sensitive sensor for novelty and the gaze of others. Think of it as a presence alarm calibrated to its highest setting. Every new face, every unfamiliar room, every pair of eyes that lingers a moment to long the alarm sounds. This isn't weakness, it's wiring. Now, if alongside this sensitivity, experiences of shame begin to accumulate, laughter when you mispronounce a word, an impatient adult answering for you before you can finish your thought, nicknames that make you want to shrink, something significant happens in the brain. It begins drawing an internal map. And on this map, a warning is etched in bold letters. Being seen is dangerous. John Bowlby, the psychologist who devoted his life to understanding attachment, showed us something profound. Consistent, attuned care draws a map of trust inside a child's heart. But when that care falters, when it comes with conditions or absences, the body learns something else entirely. It learns vigilance. It learns to scan every room for threat before relaxing. It learns that safety must be earned, never assumed. Research from institutions like the Harvard Center on the Developing Child confirms what many of us feel in our bones. Early experiences of emotional dysregulation and neglect create fertile ground for anxiety to grow. I don't share this to frighten you, but to validate what you've always suspected. Your nervous system had reasons for becoming so alert. Your fear wasn't born from nothing. From lived experience, belief is born. I'm too much trouble. I'm going to freeze. Any mistake is unforgivable. These beliefs become the soil where strategy takes root. You avoid, you stay silent, you let others speak for you. You rehearse excuses like lines in a play you never wanted to perform. But strategy always comes with cost. Opportunities slip through your fingers. Relationships fade because you keep disappearing. Your self-worth becomes entirely dependent on one fragile thing not being noticed. When everything feels like evaluation, even a simple invitation for coffee becomes an exam. Remember the shell we spoke of earlier. There are moments when retreating inside it is not only understandable but necessary. Days crowded with too many people, unfamiliar situations, bone-deep exhaustion. The wisdom isn't in shattering the shell. The wisdom is in learning when to open it and when to close it. Boundaries. Fear without boundaries floods everything. But boundaries built from language, from gradual practice, from steady support, these transform panic into something smaller, manageable discomfort. And manageable discomfort, that's a stepping stone. That's the ground beneath your feet as you begin to climb. Moses understood this. He didn't demolish his fear in a single moment of divine intervention. He learned, step by trembling step, to open his shell just enough, first with Aaron beside him, then gradually finding his own voice. The shell remained, but it no longer controlled him. And perhaps that's the invitation for you too. Here's the paradox that keeps you trapped. The invisible knot you may have never noticed tightening around your life. Running away brings relief in the moment, but it reinforces a devastating belief alone. I can't do this. Every time you flee to avoid feeling fear, you teach your nervous system that the fear was justified. The next time, the alarm rings louder. The avoidance grows deeper. The world shrinks a little more. It's a cycle that feeds itself, a snake swallowing its own tail. And the more you run, the smaller the cage becomes. But before we go further, I need to show you something else. Something beautiful that deserves to be honored. Many children who grew up shy carry a gift they rarely recognize. They are observers. They notice the slight tremor in someone's voice, the shadow that passes over a friend's face, the unspoken tension in a room. They are careful with their words, thoughtful in their responses, attuned to the emotional undercurrents that others miss entirely. This sensitivity, this capacity to feel deeply and perceive keenly is not a flaw to be corrected. It is gold. But here's the truth that changes everything. Gold without boundaries becomes a burden. Sensitivity without structure becomes an alarm that never stops ringing, alerting you to dangers that don't exist, exhausting you with its constant vigilance. Think of it this way. Your sensitivity is like a finely tuned instrument. In the right hands, with the right care, it produces music that moves people to tears. But without boundaries, without someone teaching you how to play it, the instrument screeches and wails, overwhelming everyone, including you. Don't kill your sensitivity. Don't wish it away. Don't see it as the enemy. Instead, teach it not to drive alone. Give it a co-pilot. Let wisdom sit beside it in the front seat. Moses carried this same sensitivity. He saw the suffering of his people when others looked away. He felt the weight of injustice when others had grown numb to it. That sensitivity was precisely what made him capable of the mission he was called to. But raw and unboundaried, it also made him want to hide. It was only when he learned to channel it with Aaron's support, with practice, with small steps forward, that his sensitivity became his greatest strength, rather than his deepest wound. So yes, what protected you now imprisons you. But this is also true. What protected you can be educated. It can be refined. It can learn new ways of responding. You don't need to transform into a stage extrovert to exist with presence in this world. You don't need to become someone unrecognizable, someone loud and bold and fearless. That was never the goal. What you need is a staircase, not a shove. A staircase means small steps. It means handrails to hold when your legs feel weak. It means resting on a landing when you need to catch your breath. It means climbing at your own pace, with support, with grace, with the understanding that every step, no matter how small, is still movement forward, and movement forward is enough. So where does this pattern show up in your daily life? Let's look honestly, without judgment, at the places where hiding has made its home. Maybe it lives in your body. Your heart races the moment someone asks you to speak. There's that urgent need to escape to the bathroom right before a presentation. Your vision blurs slightly when too many eyes turn toward you, as if your body is trying to make the world fuzzy enough to feel less threatening. Maybe it lives in your habits. You arrive early to every gathering, not from punctuality, but to claim the corner seat, the one closest to the exit, the one where you can observe without being observed. You rehearse perfect responses in your mind, eloquent sentences that dissolve like morning mist the moment you open your mouth. You laugh at your own ideas before anyone else can criticize them, beating them to the punch, stealing their ammunition. Maybe it lives in your family. They introduce you before you can introduce yourself. He's the quiet one, they say, and the label sticks to your skin like a name tag you never asked to wear. At holiday dinners, they answer questions directed at you, and you let them, grateful and ashamed in equal measure. Maybe it even lives in your faith. In the prayer circle, when others lift their voices, you disappear into the carpet. You mouth the words but swallow the sound, convinced that your voice would somehow disrupt the sacred. If you're a parent, perhaps a scene comes to mind that makes your chest ache. Your child stands frozen when an adult asks them a question. You jump in, answer for them, and everyone moves on. But inside that small body, a message is being recorded. My voice isn't enough. Another scene. Laughter erupts when your child mispronounces a word in public. No one meant to wound, but the wound was made nonetheless. In adults, these childhood moments resurface in familiar patterns. The eternal no, it's fine, never mind. The disappearing act whenever someone asks for your opinion. The persistent feeling that being seen is a debt you can never repay. But here's something important. There are places where you flow. In predictable environments, surrounded by safe people, you talk freely, you laugh, you contribute ideas without that familiar tightness in your chest. This isn't contradiction. This is a valuable clue. Your problem was never people. Your problem is evaluation. Your nervous system learned to read spotlights where sometimes there's only a gentle lantern. It learned to sense stadiums of judgment where there's only a small room of friends. Even Moses had his safe spaces, with his family, in the quiet of the desert, tending sheep beneath open skies there, he could breathe. It was only when the mission demanded he step before Pharaoh, before crowds, before the weight of countless watching eyes, that his tongue grew heavy and his courage faltered. The good news buried in all of this. If your body learned to misread signals, it can learn to read them accurately again. Recalibration is possible, and that's exactly where we're headed next. Now we arrive at the practical path forward. No magic promises, no overnight transformations, just a staircase, one step at a time, at your own pace. The first step, name without labeling. Instead of saying you're shy or I'm just awkward, try something more precise. My body goes on high alert when too many people are watching. If you're speaking to a child, you might say, that's your body trying to protect you. Together, We're going to learn how to pilot that alarm for yourself. Write this down and keep it somewhere visible. Silence was my armor. The problem comes when armor becomes a wall too high to see over. Let this anchor phrase settle into your heart. My fear is welcome here, but it doesn't get to drive alone. The second step: exposure through stairs, not shoves. Build clear, manageable rungs. For a child, it might look like this. First, whisper the answer in your ear, then whisper it to the teacher, then speak in a pair, then in a small group, then, eventually, to the whole class. For yourself, call a trusted friend and read a paragraph aloud. Then share one small idea in a Lostics meeting. Then ask for 2 minutes of floor time in a larger gathering. Today, one small step is courage enough. The third step: reduce the accommodation that imprisons. Parents, notice when you're always answering for your child. Create small agreements. I'll stand right beside you. The good afternoon is yours to say. If you're the adult who constantly outsources your voice to a more outgoing friend, the one who orders for you, introduces you, explains your ideas, try something different. Speak one sentence yourself, even if your voice trembles and betrays you. Anchor phrases for this step: I can help you, but I won't erase you. And for yourself, I accept help, but I don't need to disappear. The fourth step: tend to your inner dialogue. Catch the automatic thoughts and replace them with honest, possible alternatives. When your brain says this is going to be a disaster, respond: it might be uncomfortable, but uncomfortable isn't disaster. When it whispers, I'm going to freeze, try: I might tremble and still speak. When it insists, I wasn't made for this test, I wasn't trained yet, and I can train. The fifth step: find your Aaron. Remember Moses. He didn't walk into Pharaoh's court alone. He had his brother beside him, not to replace him forever, but to support him at the beginning. Choose your Aarons, patient people who stand beside you without taking your place. A colleague who gives you a cue in meetings. A leader who coordinates your speaking time in advance. A family member who practices presentations with you. Anchor phrase: I don't have to go alone, and I don't need someone to go in my place forever. Here are scripts ready for today. I want to contribute. Today I can read this part. I'll explain more next time. Let me think about it and get back to you tomorrow. I appreciate the invite. This time I'll pass. I care about us, and this pace exhausts me. Can we adjust? For your children, I'll walk with you to the edge. The words are yours. If you freeze, we try again. Let's weave everything together now. With Moses as our thread, without preaching, without turning his story into something untouchable and distant. When Moses stood before that burning bush and said, I don't know how to speak, he wasn't performing humility for dramatic effect. He was trembling. He was terrified. In that moment, he was far closer to the child who whispers, speak for me, than to any stone-carved hero we've placed on pedestals. His fear was real. His resistance was human. His desire to escape was something you and I know intimately. And what did he receive in response? Not a rebuke, not a command to simply try harder. He received Aaron, a brother, a companion, a steady presence to stand beside him when the spotlight felt blinding. Aaron wasn't a replacement. He was a staircase, a first step, a hand to hold until Moses found the strength in his own voice. There's no dishonor in needing companionship at the beginning. That's not weakness, it's wisdom. It's the understanding that we weren't designed to carry heavy things alone, that some doors are easier to open when someone stands beside us. And here's what I want you to notice about Moses' journey. It didn't erase his fear in one divine moment. The fear traveled with him, into Pharaoh's court, through the desert, across impossible waters. But with each step, The fear moved a little further from the driver's seat. It was still in the car, but it was no longer steering. Courage, in this story and in yours, is not the absence of fear. Courage is a small step forward with sweating palms. Courage is a trembling voice that speaks anyway. If your mind has ever whispered, "Maybe I lack faith," I want you to answer that thought with tenderness. Faith isn't standing on a stage without trembling. Faith is walking forward while trembling. It's not a sin to ask for steps instead of leaps. If there's any sin in this conversation, it's the way we've learned to wound our own voices in the name of performances no one ever taught us how to give. Moses' story tells us something liberating. You can show up in your own way, at your own pace, with support. You don't have to become someone else to matter. You don't have to erase your nature to have presence. And if you're caring for a child who hides the way you once did, remember this: a shove doesn't teach confidence. A shove teaches terror. Confidence is born from a different recipe entirely: predictability plus presence plus practice. Sometimes it's as simple as holding their hand, looking into their eyes, and saying, "I won't expose you alone. We'll walk to the edge together." The edge. That's where courage is born, not in the center of the stage, not under the brightest lights, but at the threshold, the place where safety meets challenge, the place where a child learns that their voice matters because someone trusted them enough to let them use it. Meet them there. Meet yourself there. The edge is enough. Let the whole film play back now. Rewind to the beginning and watch the story unfold. A child is born with heightened sensitivity to the gaze of others. This sensitivity meets experiences of shame, of silence, of moments when speaking up felt dangerous. From this collision, beliefs are born. They'll laugh at me. I'm too much. I'm not enough. These beliefs crystallize into strategies: avoid, stay quiet, disappear, let someone else carry the weight of being seen. And these strategies, faithful as they are, exact their cost: missed opportunities, fading relationships, a voice that grows quieter with each passing year. But here's the good news, and it's practical, not poetic. You can build new boundaries. You can construct real staircases. You can teach your body that a spotlight is not a fire, that attention is not annihilation, that being seen doesn't have to mean being destroyed. The goal was never to transform you into someone else. It was never to sand down your edges until you fit a mold that was never meant for you. The goal is simpler and kinder, to help you exist with more presence, even while trembling. To remind you that silence was once armor, and armor becomes a problem only when its walls grow too high to see over. So here's my invitation for today. Just one small gesture, sized to fit your life right now. Send a 30-second voice message to a friend, sharing a single idea. Practice saying "good afternoon" in front of your mirror. Arrange with someone to give you 1 minute of speaking time in your next meeting. That's it. Today, a small step is courage enough. And let me repeat what I said at the very beginning, so the full truth can settle into your bones. Many shy children are not born broken. They are born with a heightened sensitivity to the gaze of others, and they learn to protect themselves by hiding. That hiding works for a while, but over time, it demands a steep price. When the adult finally understands the mechanism, it becomes possible to trade escape for small, brave steps that honor your own rhythm. In the next 24 hours, choose one gesture that fits your size. Then listen to your breathing. If it hurts, make the step smaller. If it works, celebrate quietly or with a trembling voice. Either counts. The child you once were doesn't need to be shoved onto the stage. That child needs to be accompanied to the edge, held by steady hands, walking steps sized just for them. Before we close, 3 questions to illuminate without wounding. When did you say "I'm fine" while your body disagreed? In which relationship do you call your silence peace? What request have you postponed out of fear of seeming fragile? If any of these land somewhere tender, that doesn't diminish you, it informs you. If you can, write these words on paper and leave them where you'll see them. What protected me can be educated. What imprisons me can have boundaries. Today, a small step is courage enough, and then keep going. Slowly is also sacred. Moses walked with trembling hands into the most powerful court in the ancient world. He never stopped being afraid, but he kept walking, and so can you.